Welcome back to another episode of the Mana Drain Podcast. I'm your host, Logan, and with me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Christian. Christian, how you doing tonight?
I am doing damn fine.
Damn fine. Pretty damn fine.
Yes.
Yes. Tonight, I mean, we got a pretty interesting topic.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about cards that don't see a lot of play anymore. Whether they never saw play to begin with, and we just think they're good cards, or they're little spicy techs that we tech in because we think they're good.
Yeah, most of these aren't going to be like fitting with like a lot of our other topics with like CDH and stuff. Like you're not going to see a lot of these in CEDH, but they're just like all around good cards you can easily see in like power level like 7 to 8.
Yeah. They're definitely niche uses. I mean, it's a single card, so use your imagination on what they could be put into. But let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
I guess the first one I wanted to talk about was Opposition Agent. In the meta that me and Christian play in, I don't see it used a lot. I know it's used in like 20 to 30% of black decks or something like that on EDH rec. I'm not sure. Fact check me if I'm wrong. But personally, I rarely ever see it used. And I think that in the meta that we play in with CEDH and tutoring a bunch, it definitely can be seen and played more.
Yeah. And again, EDH rec, having it as like 20 to 30% of black decks or whatever, EDH rec just pulls from a bunch of like different deck building websites. So like a bunch of them could just be brews people had in their head, but like never built and played. So I think a lot of the numbers on there are skewed in comparison to like what you actually see on the table.
Yeah, most definitely. And I've noticed that with a couple of the cards and stats in like their database, I guess you could say. It's really good and helpful to get an idea of what cards to include in your deck, but some of the results may vary. But Opposition Agent reads 2 and a black, creature, human, rogue. It has flash. You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. All right, everyone, get your reading glasses on. While an opponent is searching their library, they exile each card they find. You may play those cards for as long as they remain exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast them. And it's a 3/2. So I was wrong. It is in 10% of decks. Of black decks that or decks on EDH rec. And that's out of 788,000. It's in 82,000 decks. So still, I mean, 10% of that is pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, Opposition Agent is a bomb card.
It's just good. There's so many instances where you can have a gotcha moment on your opponent, like they go to tutor for, like, just like even if they cast a demonic tutor, like you
fetch for a land.
Yeah, right.
And you're like, no, I want your land.
Yeah.
And they're like, dang.
Yeah, someone did that to me at Command Fest Indianapolis, where I went to go cast a Harrow or whatever, so I had to sack a land, and then they cast Opposition Agent, and then they got to exile 2 lands from my deck. And I'm like, okay, alrighty.
Yeah. So I just got rid of 3 lands for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good card. And like I'd mentioned, I think it could stand to see some more play. A lot of the cards from Commander Legends have kind of fallen off, though, I've noticed.
Yeah. Well, they banned all the good ones.
Yeah, Hull Breacher, rest in peace.
Yeah.
I never had a problem with Hull Breacher. I think that the format still suffers. I think that the format still could suffer from wheel effects, one-sided wheel effects.
Yeah, we still got
Narset, Powder Veils.
Yeah.
And then other cards that just generate value off of your opponent's drawing cards, like Consecrated Sphinx.
Yep.
Which I think inherently in the right deck is better than a Hull Breacher.
Mm-hmm. Another big one is Smothering Tithe.
Yep.
There's some fun loops you can do with Smothering Tithe, Wheel of Fortune, and like what's it called? Underworld Breach.
Oh yeah. But yeah, the banning topic is another thing for another day. Personally, I'm going to say my piece now. I don't think it should have been banned, but I digress.
Yep.
But Opposition Age, on the other hand, I think it could stand to see more play.
Yeah. Another card that I like quite a bit. I've had it slotted into a couple decks before, but ends up getting cut one way or another. But it's still fun, and I think it should see a little more play. It's called Bitter Ordeal. It is a black and 2 for a sorcery. Search target player's library for a card. Search that player's library for a card and remove that card from the game. Then that player shuffles his or her library. And it has an ability, which is the only card in the game with this ability, called Gravestorm. When you play the spell, copy it for each permanent card put into a graveyard this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. So I did double check the Gatherer, and it doesn't say each permanent that was put into the graveyard from play. So like if you just milled like half of your own deck or whatever and like put like, let's say 30 permanents in there, you get to cast Bitter Ordeal 30 times, and like you can target that all at one opponent, or you can split it up because you get to choose new targets for each of the copies. And I think it's pretty good. Just like in higher end play, like I used to run it in Grunzo Dungeon Warden, so I would just like kind of activate this ability a few times and like, you know, get like 3 or 4 permanents that hit the graveyard. And then
because they don't have to stay in the graveyard, they just have to trigger the graveyard seeing them.
Yep. And and then I just cast Bitter Ordeal with Gravestorm equals like, you know, 2 or 3 or whatever, and I exile all the combo pieces from a player's deck. And it's pretty good.
I could see that being really good in a what's his name?
Muldrotha.
Well, Muldrotha it'd be very good in Muldrotha. But also in the Toad, the Murderous Toad.
Oh, Gitrog, yeah.
In Gitrog. Very good in Gitrog.
I mean, that could also be a win con in Gitrog, because once you start doing the Dakmor Salvage loops or whatever, your Gravestorm is infinite at point. At some point. And
just grab everyone's deck.
Well, you exile everyone's deck, and you're just like, all right.
I pass turn.
Yeah, have fun.
And it's super resilient because you're playing, I mean, unless someone exiles your graveyard at instant speed, but it's resilient in the fact that if someone kills your thing, you just bring it back.
Yeah.
No, that's super spicy tech. I like that.
Yeah. And another fun thing about this card is it's a storm card. So you need like Whirlwind Denial or Flusterstorm to be able to like fully counter this spell, which is really nice.
The next one I wanted to talk about was Portent. Shout out to my cousin Andrew. Me and him had kind of found this card and we had talked about it. And it's a 1 blue sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of target player's library. Then either shuffle that library or put those 3 cards on top of the library in any order. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So, say someone Limdall's Vaults.
Or Vampiric
Tutors. For some reason at their end step. You cast this and shuffle their library and say, thank you for playing Magic. And then pass a turn and draw a card. But also I find it good when...
It's also just an early game cantrip for yourself if you need it to be.
Also, if people... like Oracle Modial effects and stuff like that, where people can see the top card of their library.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people plan on having that card in their hand. So when you do it, it can muck up some people's turns because they've been sitting there for a turn cycle thinking about how they're going to use the card that's on top of their library.
Yeah, like if someone's doing like a what is that card called? Is that Mystic Forge?
Or what's with top?
not top specifically, but like if they have it out in play and they keep checking the top of their library
Right.
or whatever, you can like look at it. You can either shuffle it if it's all artifacts you don't want to see, or if they're stuck on like 3 lands in a row.
You can just
you're
leave
like,
it.
yeah, like have fun.
Yeah. Well, you could do it. You could do it especially with top.
Yeah,
top would definitely be something that you would want to exploit someone for using.
Oh yeah, if they go to draw a card with top, you can shuffle it away.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially if you do something to target the top and make them put it back on top, and then you're like, okay, I'll portent now. So now it's gone. And you're like, gotcha. But that's some tech that I think can happen because some people target.
Yeah, and like those are really niche lines of play, and that's the nice thing about portent. It also like seconds as a cantrip for yourself. So like it's not like you're putting in a weird it's not like you're putting in a weird card that's like niche in like certain spots in the game. It's always
it still draws a card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the next card I found here while looking for some weirdos was Pulverize. It is a sorcery for 4 and 2 red. Destroy all artifacts. But it has an alternative casting cost of sacrificing 2 mountains. And if you're playing mono red or like Gruul or whatever color combination with red, just being able to sacrifice 2 mountains to destroy all artifacts seems really strong. And
yeah, I find that to be a better Bane of Progress. Personally.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And it's like if you look at the goblin decks, they play like Mog Alarm, which is like a spell that makes goblins, and you can also sacrifice 2 mountains to cast it. Like, and that sees play, so I don't see why this wouldn't. You know.
And if you're doing like land destruction, like Raga Draga, land destruction, this would be an awesome card to play because you're going to be playing cards that destroy lands anyways, and using that synergy where you're going to be getting stuff back from your graveyard with Dredge and like Life of the Loam and stuff.
Yeah, or even like a Lord Windgrace deck where he like one of his abilities is getting lands back.
Yeah,
from your graveyard.
So blow everything up for 2 mountains, but then let me just get those back, and your chances are playing multiple lands a turn. So let me just blow your stuff up and get it back instantly. Really good tech. I really like that.
Yeah.
The next one we got is red as well. It's Smoke. It's 2 red, enchantment. No player may untap more than 1 creature during his or her untap phase. I never knew this existed until we were doing research for this episode, and I think I might include it in my Magda list now as part as a stack piece, because I'll be able to untap and tap Magda at will.
Yeah.
But it would really hose my opponents, especially creature-based strategies. So it might be something that I would hold in my hand if people aren't playing creature-based strategy, because then there's really no point for me to play it. But if someone's playing Elf Ball, like, I'm going to play it.
Yeah. Like, I used to run this card like 3 or 4 years ago. I had a Zada Hedron grinder deck, and I know most people do like a pump spell tribal deck with him, but I try to gear mine more towards like a storm list. And but yeah, like I don't need any of my creatures to be untapped. I just need them to be in play so I can like, you know, cast an expedite on my commander and then draw 20 cards, you know. Like,
yeah. Not really niche. It is a stacks piece, which is nice. But yeah, I thought it was cool, and I was actually, that's why I like doing kind of episodes like this, because you're forced to look at things that in a different way and kind of
and you get to see some fun cards that you won't see like in other people's lists or on EDH Rec, and you know, just kind of stand out
and something like special to your deck, because a lot of times
everyone's got their pet cards. It's always nice finding new ones.
Most definitely, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So the next card I have here is one that I used to play quite a bit, and I know a lot of people played it a lot back in the day, but I still think it's a playable card, is Gaia's Touch. It is 2 green for an enchantment. You may play an additional land during... You may play an additional land during each of your turns if that land is a basic forest. So it's like an explorer, but only for basic forests. So you're generally going to be slotting this into your mono green decks. And then you can sacrifice Gaia's Touch to add 2 green to your mana pool. So this is a card that lets you accelerate your lands and also acts as a ritual later on. This card's just super explosive for what it does at 2 mana.
I agree with you. Especially playing elf ball lists. I could definitely see it being explosive early game. And kind of tying into that, one of the cards I was going to talk about was Instill Energy, which is 1 green, enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature can attack as though it had haste, and pay 0, untap enchanted creature. Activate this only during your turn and only once each turn. It's a 1-drop. I mean, it grants haste to 1 creature, and it gives pseudo vigilance. I run it in my Morrowind Elf Ball deck, and it's super good early game because it's you're netting a mana the turn it comes in.
And I used to run this in Savala Explorer Returned, where you want to have as much stuff in the deck to untap her, and having a 1 mana enchantment that lets you untap her once per turn for free is pretty nutty.
Yeah, it's really good. I find that when I do play it, people don't target it like my Kyrian Ranger or Werewood Symbiote.
Yeah.
Which I find I understand, but at the same time, it still does the same effect. Like Werewood Symbiote, you can only do once per turn, and Kyrian Ranger, you can only do once per turn.
Yeah, but there's combos around there. Yeah.
But I still think it's a card that if I saw it played on something that benefits from being untapped even once, because Morrowind can go from tapping for 9 mana to 18 mana, or tapping for 8, casting 5 elves, and then exponentially getting more mana. It's pretty niche. I mean, there's cards that you're going to put it on. I could see you putting it on any elf ball commander.
Yeah, like even if you put it on a Llanowar tribe, that turns 3 mana into 6 mana.
Yeah.
You know. What is the Karamatris Acolyte?
Yep.
Or whatever. She taps for green equal to your devotion to green. Like, there's so many cards this would be insane on. There's
the enchantment creature that it's a pseudo Sarah's Ascendant, or a pseudo Sarah Sanctum.
Yep. There is, oh god, what's that card called? I see what you're saying, but yeah, there's also the almost forgot the Circle of Dreams Druid, which is Gaia's Cradle on a creature.
There's just multiple things that you could do. A pretty nutty thing you could do is making your lands into creatures and then putting it onto have a Gaia's Cradle out.
Yeah, animate it.
Yeah, if you animate it, you have an untappable Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah.
Which in turn can lead into infinite combos and loopy stuff.
Right. So the next card I have here is a weird one that I found. It is a instant. It is called Partition Scorn. It is a white and 3. And it just says destroy all enchantments. But if you played another white spell this turn, you can play Partition Scorn without paying its mana cost.
But wait, there's more.
But yeah, like, it's... If you're playing in white and not playing like a heavy enchantment strategy, this card is pretty nutty. Having a free spell to destroy all enchantments seems pretty damn good. At instant speed as well.
So say you cast a silence and then you flash that in, or you cast that for free. Like,
right. Or like even if you're playing like I know our buddy Timmy has like a Thalia commander deck. Like turn 2, you can just cast your commander and then cast this for free. Like that's really stupid.
Really good stupid.
Yeah.
What set's that from?
I think that is Future Sight.
The Future Sight.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was printed before that. Although it sounds like a pretty Future Sight thing.
Yeah.
No, that's a really cool tech. I think that I think it can be used in a lot of different ways, especially instant speed being able to.
Yeah, and like even if you don't have the alternative casting cost like open to you, 4 mana isn't that bad for an instant speed board wipe for enchantments.
It's a Wrath. I mean, people were playing Wrath of God and Armageddons.
Yeah.
And Wrath of God was 4 mana. You know what I mean? So, and Wrath of God is a good card. I mean,
yeah, like imagine playing that against Andrew's Sithis deck. That would blow him out pretty easily.
That's funny because I played Back to Nature, which is a green enchantment removal spell, enchantment removal spell for 1 green.
Yeah.
Which is also very good instant speed. But I would draw it and I would never play it.
Yeah.
Because his stuff would have indestructible, or he didn't have anything out because someone deleted his commander and did this, and this.
Yeah.
So I eventually it rotated out, but I definitely would consider playing this.
Yeah.
Next card I want to talk about. It's a pretty well-known card. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. It's Jace the Mind Sculptor. I don't see him at all. I personally love Jace. I know my father is. I think Jace is one of his favorite cards, alongside like Wheel of Fortune. But Jace the Mind Sculptor is 2/2 blue, legendary planeswalker. Jace starts out with 3 loyalty. His uptick is +2. Look at the top card of target player's library. You may put that card on the bottom of that player's library. Again, if someone Vamp tutors, or Mystical tutors, or Enlightened tutors, or Worldly tutors, I think I pretty much just named them all off.
Yeah.
Just put it on the bottom. Just keep it down there.
Yep.
The 0 uptick is draw 3 cards. It's a brainstorm. You draw 3 cards, put 2 cards from your hand back on top in any order.
Yep.
-1 is return target creature to its owner's hand. Really good for bouncing. Just good utility. His -12 exiles all. His second downtick, he has 4 abilities. His second downtick is -12, exile all cards from target player's library. Then that player shuffles their hand into their library. So just delete somebody from the game, essentially.
Yep.
I think if you're playing Super Friends, you're going to have a blue and green in there.
Yeah.
I think he deserves to be one of the cards that you should fear. Mainly because if you're playing a really well-tuned Super Friends deck, you're going to alt him.
Yep.
Like, you will murk somebody. It's not going to happen when he ETBs, only because he starts out at 3, and it's a -12, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you do your uptick for 2, it's for 4, and 2 turns to do this.
Yeah.
Or even 1 turn to do it, depending on what cards you have out.
Right, with like a doubling season.
Doubling season and a Vorinclex out. Like, you're gonna get there.
Right.
No, I wish I saw him more. I like Jace. He's a pivotal story character in Magic. I mean, he has been since almost the beginning, since they started the lore aspect, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I think it's just I know we've talked about this in the past. It's just planeswalkers are just kind of meh in Commander.
Yeah.
Because like in 1v1 formats, they shine a lot more because it's easier to protect them against one player. But if there's 3 players that want to attack into this guy, he's going to be gone.
Well, and that's like with Karn and Mycosynth Lattice.
Yeah.
it is a lock, but Karn can still die, y'all.
Yeah.
Just attack the Karn.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from experience. I play the combo. Just kill the Karn if you want to get out of it. And Karn, don't rest in peace my graveyard when I have a Karn out. I will play every artifact out of my graveyard, especially with a Mycosynth out.
Yep.
But anyways, with the Jace, I just want to see him more. I think that he is a decent enough planeswalker and powerful enough. He demands respect. I mean, if you leave him unchecked, he will just take someone out. But he is just good utility as well. I mean, pay 0, brainstorm for free. You have him for 2 turns. You net your mana back. So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Jace. What else can I say?
Yeah, and the last, or did you have any more cards after this?
No, that pretty much summed up my list.
Okay, yeah. So the last card I have here is Rakdos Charm.
Ooh, yeah.
It is black and red for an instant. Choose one. You can either exile all cards from target player's graveyard, destroy target artifact, or each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. Like, this is definitely one of those cards that does see play quite a bit, but I want to see it more.
Yeah,
because it just really hoses graveyard strategies, and also a lot of people like to make infinite tokens, or if you're playing against an Orvar deck that makes a ton of the same creature, you can just kill them with this one spell. It's just really versatile for what it does at its mana cost and at instant speed. I just think it's really good. Yeah,
no, I totally agree with you. And with it being at instant speed, it kind of evens out the fact that it's 1 red, 1 black, and even then, that's not something hard to do.
Right.
But I do like the killing the go wide player with 1 spell.
Yeah, or even in CDH, someone starts they go to cast Underworld Breach. You're like, I'll exile your graveyard.
Yeah. And then they're sitting there freaking out, trying to figure out a way to do it all at instant speed, but they can't because.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I think that I think it's a good choice. And I would like to see it played more, because there's times where I'm like, someone needs to deal with my graveyard. Y'all gonna lose if you let me keep doing this.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty big problems. People not kind of talk about the graveyard hate on the card. Not target assessing or threat assessing people's graveyards. They see people's battlefields, but if a Muldrotha doesn't have anything out on the battlefield, but Muldrotha's out and their graveyard is full, I'm going after the Muldrotha. There's so much value that can be gained off of being able to cast 4 permanents from your graveyard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or you're looking through someone's graveyard and they have a Savine's Reclamation or a Dread Return or anything like that, and there's other scary stuff in their graveyard. You're gonna want to deal with that, and being able to do that in instant speed is really nice.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, so I mean that's really it. We kind of just got through recording a nice long episode for you guys, and we just wanted a nice sweet one for your drive home or something like that. Just talk about some nice cards that don't get played a lot, or they see some play, but we feel like they could definitely see some more love.
Yeah. Just get to look at some janky cards too.
Yeah. I mean, I like looking through older cards just because it opens your eyes to the possibilities of Magic, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But also it can blindside people when it comes down to it. When you get a janky card that is actually very efficient, but just seems janky on the surface, it can go under the radar and win you games sometimes, depending on what card it is.
Yeah, you see it all the time nowadays where a new set comes out and then a card from 20, 30 years ago is now super expensive because it combos with a newer card.
Yeah.
And there's not much of a supply of that card. So it's always nice to just kind of like look back and see what's out there and maybe see some cards you never thought about before putting in your newer deck. Like, oh, hey, this interacts really well with this commander that came out like a couple weeks ago.
And keeping the memory bank like fresh, because there's going to be times where like what we're doing is looking at old cards, but a lot of other people look at old cards. So it's helpful to look back in Magic's history and kind of spot select cards that you think are good. And if you see them in the wild, then you have a pretty good understanding of what they can be used for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for listening and giving all the support in the comments and liking the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps us out with YouTube and the podcast and stuff. So yeah, we'll see y'all next time.
Yep. Have a good one.
Peace.